All right, so today we're diving into the experiences of Lehlohonolo Mofokeng,
Okay.
a high school teacher from Bloemfontein, South Africa.
Right.
He's been teaching for 5 years now at a township school, and
Yeah.
he really offers some powerful reflections on the state of education there.
Absolutely.
We're going to kind of unpack his story and see what it tells us about the
Right.
challenges and potential solutions within the South African education system.
Right.
Now, for those who may not be familiar,
Yeah.
township schools, they were historically disadvantaged under apartheid.
Right.
And despite some progress, they still face, an uphill battle.
Yeah.
And Mofokeng's story gives us a really, a glimpse into that reality.
It's fascinating, actually, how his journey really mirrors a common experience for
Hmm.
many educators, especially those in these challenging contexts. He
Mhm.
starts, like so many do, with this incredible optimism, eager to inspire young minds.
Mhm.
But, as time goes on, that initial spark, it seems to dim a bit. Yeah.
As he encounters what he calls a toxic school environment.
Yeah, it's really heartbreaking when he talks about it. He
Mhm.
talks about this, this negativity that can take root,
Yeah.
gossip, backstabbing, just this sense of hopelessness.
Hmm.
And I think what really struck me was how this environment can be very tough,
Yeah,
especially on new teachers.
absolutely.
There's almost this pressure to conform
Right.
or risk being kind of swept up in the negativity.
It's so detrimental, and not just for the teacher's well-being. Obviously, that's a factor.
Yeah.
But it directly impacts their ability to be effective in the classroom.
Right.
Mofokeng even mentions,
Yeah.
young teachers feeling this pressure to compromise their values,
Mm.
leading to, burnout, disillusionment. It becomes a vicious cycle.
Yeah.
Sadly, it reflects a system that's struggling to support its educators.
It really makes you wonder,
Yeah.
how can teachers foster this positive learning environment for their students?
Right. When they themselves are dealing with such negativity.
Exactly.
And that sense of disillusionment, I think it really leads into his next point,
Okay.
which is this
Yeah.
lack of accountability that he sees,
Mhm.
particularly for teachers in those lower grades.
This is critical.
Yeah.
And it's something we see often, unfortunately. He observes that supervision is often lacking.
Right.
There's little follow-up on teacher performance.
Yeah.
Evaluations, it seems, become more about,
Right.
checking boxes than actually fostering genuine improvement.
Yeah.
What's really concerning is when he talks about teachers basically ignoring those accountability sessions.
Right. Just going through the motions.
Exactly, because they know there are no real consequences.
Yeah. And he even says that,
Mm.
when departmental officials do visit the school,
Right.
it feels more like a performance
Yeah.
than, a genuine effort to understand the challenges.
It's like everyone knows the system is flawed,
Yeah.
but nothing changes.
It's disheartening to say the least.
It is.
So, what's at the root of this accountability problem then?
Well, one thing that Mofokeng points to is this
Mm-hmm.
lack of resources, lack of support coming from the higher levels of the education system.
Yeah.
I mean, schools are often understaffed, they're undersupplied,
Right.
and there's this immense pressure to produce good exam results.
Right. Just get those scores up.
Yeah, and unfortunately, that kind of pressure,
Mm-hmm.
it shifts the focus away from individual teacher development.
It's like this pressure cooker environment, right?
Exactly.
It just kind of trickles down and impacts everyone,
Everyone.
from the principal to the teachers, and then ultimately, of course,
Ultimately, the students.
the students are the ones who suffer.
Right, and this leads us to, I think, another critical point that he raises,
Yeah.
which is this overwhelming emphasis that's placed on matriculation exams,
Mm-hmm.
sometimes even at the expense of a strong educational foundation in those earlier grades.
Yeah, and he calls this the matric mindset, right?
Yes, matric mindset.
And he's very clear about the negative impact it has.
Yeah, he doesn't mince words, he says.
He really doesn't.
How can you straighten a building, he asks,
Right.
when the problem is the foundation?
Such a good analogy.
It's not about just aiming for a shiny facade, right? It's about building that solid base.
And this is something that we see,
And everywhere. Oh, yeah.
this teaching to the test phenomenon.
It's global. It's a global issue. It really is, because when you prioritize exam performance
Yeah.
over, genuine learning, critical thinking,
Right?
we end up with a system that values memorization over true understanding.
Right. It's all about just memorizing facts and then forgetting them as soon as the test is over.
It's like building a house of cards, you know?
Mm.
Might look impressive at first glance, but
But it's so fragile.
incredibly fragile the first sign of trouble.
Right. Exactly.
The whole thing collapses.
And it makes you wonder, what happens to those students,
Yeah.
who might not excel in that kind of high-pressure exam environment?
Right. Are we setting them up for failure later on?
Yeah, exactly,
Right.
by neglecting those foundational needs.
It's a valid concern, absolutely.
It is.
Um, despite all of these challenges, though,
Yeah.
Mofokeng does highlight one really bright spot, and that's engaged parents.
Yes. He talks about that a lot.
He does, and the parents that he encounters,
Yeah.
they are deeply invested in their children's education, eager to collaborate with teachers. I mean, he even shares stories
I
about
love those stories.
students reminding him to give them homework.
I know. It's like, did you forget?
My mom's going to be upset
I know. It's amazing.
because their parents are,
On top of it.
on top of it. Yeah.
It's heartwarming to see.
It is. It's this reminder that even amidst all these challenges,
Yeah.
there's this real hunger for quality education
Absolutely.
and a willingness to work together to achieve it.
Right. But, I mean, realistically,
Yeah,
how can teachers encourage this kind of parent involvement more,
that's the question, isn't it?
especially when they're already stretched so thin?
Well, I think in Mofokeng's case,
Yeah.
a lot of his success probably stemmed from this proactive communication he had with parents.
Okay.
Keeping them informed about their children's progress,
Right.
creating opportunities for them to be meaningfully involved.
So it's really about building those bridges then,
Exactly, building those bridges.
fostering that sense of partnership between the school and the home.
Absolutely. And I think that requires a real shift in mindset,
Okay.
for both teachers and parents.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really about creating that sense of community
Yeah,
around education.
absolutely.
And that's a powerful message, especially
Right.
given the history of township schools.
Right.
They were marginalized, under-resourced.
And Mofokeng's experiences really highlight that it takes a real collective effort to break down those barriers and create a more level playing field.
Right. It's not enough to just have these dedicated teachers.
It's
We need a
yeah.
system that supports them,
Absolutely.
that empowers parents, that prioritizes,
Yes.
the long-term well-being of all students.
It starts with recognizing that every child, regardless of their background, deserves that quality education, an education that equips them with the skills,
Right.
the knowledge, the critical thinking skills to really thrive.
Absolutely. And that leads us to,
Yeah.
Mofokeng's closing thought, which I really appreciated.
Okay.
He asks this question. He says, Are we as a society truly invested in building strong educational foundations for our children? Or are we simply aiming for a superficial structure built on shaky ground?
It's such a powerful question.
It is.
And it's one that I think transcends, geographical borders.
Absolutely.
It's relevant everywhere
It really is.
because it challenges us to examine our own priorities,
Yeah.
Are we content with a system
Right.
that prioritizes these short-term gains over long-term sustainable success?
Right. Are we willing to put in the work
Yeah, are we willing to invest
to make those lasting changes?
the resources, the support systems that are necessary to create real change?
It's a call to action for everyone.
It is.
Educators, parents, policymakers,
Community members.
everyone.
Yeah.
Everyone has a role to play.
Mofokeng's story really reminds us that education,
Yeah.
it's not just about, transmitting information. It's about empowering individuals and building a better future.
Absolutely. Well said.
This has been, a really thought-provoking deep dive
Red hat.
into Mofokeng's journey.
Yeah.
And we hope that our listeners found it
Mm-hmm.
just as impactful as we did.
Absolutely.
Until next time, keep asking those tough questions
Keep learning.
and keep diving deeper.